I spoke with the tax assessor personally, so I don't need to belabor the point, but I just briefly, to summarize, and Ed, you can correct me if I'm wrong, what's coming before us is roughly 10 settlements of tax appeals that went to the tax court, which is different than the Hudson County Tax Board of Appeals, and we're authorizing about $170,000 worth of settlement money, and this is only 10 out of 190 appeals at the tax court. And I think, just for the public record, I think this is further proof that the current system of revaluation that we have is broken. We're about to spend $200,000 to pay off improper evaluations. That's in addition to the hundreds of thousands of dollars we spend in tax appeals, in addition to the hundreds of thousands of dollars we spend on tax appraisers, in addition to the money we now have to pay the county and the school for having the wrong assessments, in addition to interest payments we pay when we lose at tax court. So I think the way we handle these processes is wrong. I have talked to my colleagues about why we need to reform it, and we've talked about, for the calendar year 2019, pushing forward reform of the reval process. So, that's my issue. I think it's very important, and you guys will, we'll be talking more about this in the future.
Okay, let's
Actually,
go. I'm
there
sorry.
are other council people have questions. So, to the tax assessor, so these are settlements, yes? So why not let it go through the judicial process and let the tax court determine this?
When these cases go to trial, it is more expensive for the city. Not only the exposure that we would have, historically the tax court basically would wind up reducing the assessed value much lower than we have looked for, what we have settled for. And not only that, we'll be paying experts to testify before the tax court. Additional charges, of course, additional fees are paid once these are dragged on to trial before the tax court.
So what we have before us is an original assessment. That's the assessed value, correct?
Yeah, the original assessment you have, basically what happened here is that what I settled with the numbers, with the consent of our experts, the settled amount was like 15,700,000 from 23 million. Now, I just want to explain that these are basically not erroneous assessments. It's just through the years when different ratios are applied, like when the market values go up, the likelihood is the ratio comes down. So what happens then if they file an appeal? Basically, if properties are assessed like 30% of their market value, then through the years it is now 21% of market value, then they would be entitled to that credit. Not every year properties are assessed at 100%. It so happened that 2018 is a reval year. When it boiled down to the amount that we settled, the cumulative amounts for all of this is like 15.7 million, and in 2018 when the reval came, it came up to 15.3. So a little bit, we're still ahead, like around 400,000 from what we settled prior to the reval.
Let's look at the item 65-7 Tunley Avenue, right? So you're settling the assessed values from 2012 through 2017.
Right. These
the first 3 years are no change as a settled value, but then in 2015 it begins to, the settled value is declining moving forward from there, 2016,
right.
17.
Now, when we do settlement, sometimes you have to take a look at the overall picture of what the total assessed reduction in the assessments. Now, it may not be technically whatever ratios applied for those years. It's just we take a look on individual years and come up with a certain reduction. It's part of the settlement kind of strategy when we deal with properties that are of high assessments.
Why is it in years 15, 16, 17 it reduces versus,
Sometimes when you're trying to settle, they may give up a few years in order to get some reductions on the farther down with the years. So you take a look, what is the total loss for the city? You dismiss this particular appeal on certain years, then you're willing to give them a little bit more credit on another year or on a different year. So basically, that's what happens when you sit down with the property owners, either with their experts or with their attorneys. Sometimes when you do settlements, the standards that you use in terms of valuations.
what is the 2018 assessed value for this property, based on the reval?
We settled at
Settled? I mean,
no,
we have a reval done.
the amount, the value that we have, 7,312,000 in terms of market value, and the reval came up with 6.9 million on this the Ramada Hotel, the Mayflower.
This is the Ramada Hotel.
Yeah, I would say what we have settled is a little bit, higher than what the reval firm came.
So this is the Ramada Hotel, so this is, for 2018, their assessment came up at 7.3 million?
6.9. I settled at 7.3. In other words, our number is higher than what the reval came up for 2018. The value for the hotel now is 6.9. I settled at 7.3.
How did you end up settling? They contest? I'm
Well,
confused.
basically, as I said, you take a look at the valuations and everything. Sometimes the bone of contention
They
is between...
appealed, what I'm confused about is you're saying they've appealed their 2018 assessment?
No, they did not. This is basically strictly from 17 down to 2012. It's multiple years of settlement.
Who is recommending this?
Well, basically, we have McInerney before. We sit down with them, and of course our counsel. This is basically the what was mutually agreed.
Our counsel being outside counsel?
Yes,
McInerney.
and our expert. McInerney was our expert.
And there's another 190 of these pending? Is that?
Oh no, there's none right now for this 18.
What's that?
There's nothing moving forward on this.
On what?
You're asking if there are any appeals
Yeah, current
on these
appeals.
particular properties.
No, not these particular, but citywide.
Oh yes, there are.
There's another.
We
190.
have appeals before the county tax board. At the same time, also we have approximately 190 that are pending before the tax court right now.
Going back as far as 2012 or 2015 or wherever years you're talking about.
I would say, it still hovers within that number. It could be 180, between 180 to 185 for the 2017.
I didn't understand an answer. I'm saying
No.
these go back as far as 2012. They're appealing their assessments going back as far as the ones that are still outstanding out there. They go back as far as 2012. Is that?
Not all cases we have. As far as we know, we have 190 cases before the tax court right now.
In this instant case, it does.
Which one?
In the instant case that you're talking about, it does
This
go
one
back.
before us, yes.
Yes.
But I'm saying for the other 190, that we could see a number of these with multiple years being contested.
Yes, there are still cases, there are still accounts that have multiple years of appeal.
Now, how far are property owners allowed to go back with the appeal?
There's no prescription in terms of how many years you can basically, be pending. 3,800.
Appeals?
Yes. We have a total of 61,000 line items we have, and out of that, 3,008 basically filed an appeal as a result of the 2018 reval figures we have, or reval.
What is the implication
revaluation.
if this is not approved today?
What is that?
What's the impact if this is not approved today?
Well, the impact is we're going to proceed with the trial on this.
I'd like to see the attorneys who were recommending this to speak more about it and give me more information, not just about this one, but particularly, I guess, kind of the
Sure.
outstanding appeals and so forth, and what our strategy is in dealing with these things.
Yeah, okay, no problem. I know we have continuing kind of settlement conferences, so I think with the law department, together with the law department, I think we'll be able to confer with you once we come up with additional settlement conferences.
So do we have time to be able to have that conversation without approving this, so we can...
I thought you were talking about future negotiations.
I'm talking about this and future. Do we have time right now for...
For this, no, unfortunately, I think the time basically to report to the tax court is basically, you're talking about days.
This was supposed to be included in the April 13th agenda.
That's correct.
Council members.
If you take a look at the fact sheet I have, it was dated March of 2018. I don't know, it must have been lost.
Why wasn't it included in April?
It's not include April, March 18, right?
No, we were looking, the law department told me that it was scheduled for was that March 18, right? And when we look at the agenda, it was nowhere to be found.
What is our exposure if we lose, if this goes to court and we lose?
Historically, I would say it's more than 172,000 in refunds.
Do you have an estimate on these particular properties?
Do I have any particular properties that may...
Do you have an estimate on what that exposure would be for the city? If we were to go to court, see this through, and lose the appeals?
Well, again, we could play both sides. The court might side with us, but I'm only basically...
Yeah, I'm saying worst case scenario.
We will be paying more.
How much?
I can't, basically put a definite number on this, but the likelihood is more than 175,000.
Yeah, I'm certain it's more than 175,000, but like, give me your ballpark estimate on this. Like, give me
Say, for argument's sake, you're talking about maybe 215,000?
215.
Yes.
So I'm saying I'd like to kind of roll the dice personally and kind of see how that plays out, to see if that's a course of action. And I think it's, for me, it would be worth it to spend 30,000 with another 190 out there pending, to see how that may work in our favor or against, in that sense, and whether we would ultimately save money on these appeals or not. That's just my opinion on that. But knowing that I just got this information now, I'd be prepared to kind of roll the dice on it and let our lawyers do their lawyering and see if they can win these appeals. And if that's the case, then maybe we can save us some money instead of and reversing course on this.
Now, the 200K, is that including court costs and expert witnesses?
That's
Or is
just
that
the...
just the tax?
I'm just talking about the tax
Yeah.
dollars that will be exposed. This is aside from the actual litigation cost that we would incur.
How much do we think if we won, best case scenario? Like based on our...
Well, I can only go by the numbers that we have.
Yep.
He's already put up the white flag, basically.
Yeah.
Who has? Who has put up the white flag?
The tax assessor.
Tax assessor.
Yeah.
And the attorneys
I mean,
that
we're looking about
represent us in the tax court of New Jersey.
multiple years of settlements on this. Sometimes you haggle between back and forth, and this is basically the best scenario that you have.
But you're not doing the haggling. Someone else is, right?
Well, I am part of the negotiation.
Okay.
What about corporate counsel? What's your take on that?
We have outside counsel handling all tax appeals, and they work with the tax assessor in terms of all tax appeals that go to both the County Board of Taxation as well as the tax court. In conjunction with now, I know this going back to my private counsel days of how this process works. The person doing the appeal has an attorney and also someone doing an appraisal of the property. As we mentioned, we have an expert appraisal as well. The idea is that in the part of the settlement process is, well, do you want to meet somewhere in the middle? Anytime you go to the judge and say, we're going to present our case, each appraiser is going to give you their witness testimony, the court's the one that makes the determination. In any case, whether it's a tax court case, a personal injury case, or a criminal case, anytime you allow the finder of fact, the judge or the jury, to make the decision, you are entering the world of the unknown. Okay. When you settle a case, you know what your consequences are, and in this particular case, we're talking about going back several years. Okay, so we have a finite number that we're talking about with these settlements. In addition, if we go to the tax court and we get this exact number, the city actually winds up losing money because the court costs involved with counsel fees to be there to try the case, in addition to the costs required to bring the expert appraiser in to come and testify. So if this number is what the tax court finds at a trial, we actually are losing money compared to what the settlement would be. So, but the value of a settlement is you know what your number is, and you're not worried about what the judge may or may not do.
How many of these appeals go to actual judgment? How many of these appeals have actually
go to trial?
Yeah, go to trial and what's the result? What's the result among those?
As I said, historically, if a case goes to trial, we wind up losing more than what you settle.
You're saying we historically lose these appeals?
Yes. If they are tried, the town loses more.
So if we settle these here, are we just planning on settling the other 190 that's out there, and then possibly the 3,800?
Right. If we settle this, as the council was saying, we know basically what we'll be walking into without the additional cost incurred with our experts.
So,
Microphone?
County. Most of the tax appeals are settled at the county tax appeal board. So you won't have as many, you won't see nearly as many going to tax court because it also costs the person who is filing the complaint. So they're usually settled at the appeals at the county.
But these are the high-end ones that result in the tax court of New Jersey for large commercial properties. And rolling the dice is dicey.
But also, Council President, can I ask one question?
Councilman?
Yeah. The way that we said at the last council caucus meeting, and the councilman James Solomon talked about that find the different options for rebel. And did you do some research?
Yeah, I'm aware about that kind of project. I'm still waiting some of the data from out of town, so at least we could complete the study of what the impact of the rolling reval is.
Also, if you have time to research that New York City, that rebel processing,
Yeah, that's correct. Some of the figures basically would be, so we'll have some empirical data on how, what would be the impact of such exercise.
Just to make sure that, compare the apple to apple, we
That's
cannot
correct,
compare
yes.
here to Sussex County, okay? All right, good.
Comparable cities,
Yes.
Council.
Okay. Council members, we ready
can
to
we
rock?
vote on certain ones on this? So, for example, if I didn't want to vote for PSE&G, didn't want to settle that one, hypothetically, can I cast a vote against that settlement? And
Not really. You could have them parse them out into different resolutions, but
so there's a PSE&G property, 89 Duffield Avenue.
The properties on the PSE&G, some of those properties we have with the Hackensack Meadowlands area, one thing they suffered from contamination. Now, we don't know whether this is part of that. I don't think this is part of the contamination. It is more of a result of the ratio coming down different years. Remember, for 2017, you're looking at 23.66% of market value. That's how properties are assessed. A few years before that, you're talking about like 32%. The declining ratio would bring down your assessed values.
I guess my final statement on this is I'd like to, whatever the outcome of this vote is on this, I'd still like to see our attorneys on this, and would like to see more information about how many go to tax board, how many are resolved there, and what the outcomes are, positive and negative. How many of those ultimately move to court, positive, negative, and what the outcomes are there at the tax court. Will that actually go to judgment? Because it appears to me that the appeals are never in our favor, right? Like, we're always giving money, so that's just an outcome. That's a natural outcome. Like, they're not going to, at that point, if they're in court with us, they're not going to relinquish that because they don't want to
Yeah, Council,
in their favor.
the appeals will never disappear because the market is dynamic. Every time you have a change in ratio, there is a change in value on how properties are being assessed. That's why this is a continuing dynamics.
What I'm saying is strategically, once they get to appeal, they know, as you said, maybe 5%, whatever the number is, they know I'm getting something back at that point.
No, not necessarily. If you take a look at the total amount of appeals filed, there are some cases where basically the assessed values were affirmed.
Okay, once they get to court, if they get to court, they know they're getting something, right? If they take it to court.
Yeah, sometimes, the especially at the county board level, I think if I have to say what they used to be, the county tax board chairman was saying, that throw them a bone, very minimal amount, It's not substantial. That's all what I could say.
But where you run into the big money is when you go to the tax court with these
That's
large
correct.
properties.
If they disagree with you on the county level, because they have the financial wherewithal, they go to the tax court where additional fees could be borne by the property owner.
Okay. Let's call for the votes and stuff.
All right.
Else have questions?
Oh,
Oh, everything.
we're to the claims in addendum number 1.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilperson Ridley? Aye. Mary?
Aye.
You're back, Rich. Do you want to articulate your vote?
Got my votes. You know what I voted. Right?
Yeah, he voted already.
All right. Councilperson Yun?
Aye.
Solomon?
Aye.
Robinson?
Aye.
Rivera? Waterman?
She stepped away.
Council President?
Aye.